Weekly. There's one up in Clinton, but the road, like up towards Clinton, because they have Cache Creek to Clinton closed off.
Oh, yeah.
You get used to it, which is like a crazy thing to consider, but it's just like,
Right.
oh yeah.
I know. It's true. It's true. It's like it's the norm.
Yeah. Yeah, just, you know, from like end of June to October, you can just expect there's smoke and fire somewhere.
I know it's true.
I don't know if I could ever get used to it. We had lots of smoke in Ontario last week, and I thought the world was ending. So you wake up and the sky's
Everybody in
all orange.
Ontario thinks that.
Yeah, it
Jamie,
feels a
you're-
little apocalyptic for sure.
Yeah, it's definitely
It's like it's
scary when
suddenly-
it's like
people
broad
are paying
daylight,
attention.
you have like the blood red sky with
Yeah,
like
that's the
all
one.
the street lights are turning on. Yeah.
That's an uneasy feeling for sure.
It's like
Gotta
the
get your
rest of the
zombie.
country's paying attention to what BC and Alberta have lived with for so long.
Well, not really.
Because-
We're just worried about
because of
Ontario.
Ontario. Well, that's true, but it's because of Ontario. Oh, buggers.
It's pretty weird. I moved out here 7 years ago. Never once did I grow up with fire in Ontario at all.
Yeah.
And to like now see it happening. It's all the time in Ontario. That's weird. Your winters are a lot more wet. Yeah. They're slushy. It's gross. Yeah. No, I said. Although last week, when I cooled off, I grew up in Saskatchewan. I don't miss it at all.
Be frozen? I thought it would have to be frozen for a minute.
All right. So should we just get right at it? I see there's lots of people still joining. And like, what did I see? Probably 15 AI meeting notes get signed in. So we'll have lots of records of this happening. So yeah, welcome back, everybody. This is our sixth session in total, our third one on preparing for the unexpected. And last month we started talking about ethical decision-making, harm reduction, stuff like that, and more of like a theory. And I think a lot of the comments we got were people wanted to get kind of right into the meat of it. So we thought today that we would kind of get you guys reconnected and kind of continue that conversation on what harm reduction looks like, what ethical decision looks like, using maybe some examples along the way. But we have Primrose here, and we have Mark, and we have Dale. And I think those are the three that are going to lead us through this conversation. I apologize. I was on vacation last week, and I'm just kind of jumping right back into it. So if I missed someone, Prim, Mark, Dale. I know Juliet's out there, but I don't think she was kind of tapped to talk at this one. So yeah, I think we just get going, and I'll pass it off to you guys.
Okay, I can start. So for everyone who I haven't met yet, hi, I'm Dale. I am the Service Access and Transitions Leader in the Saanich site. And I'll present with Mark and Prim, and they can introduce themselves if you haven't met them. But I wanted to just give a quick recap about the last session we had and where we're going today. So the last session we did explore the ethical decision making and how that is rarely about finding one right answer. It's really about balancing the person's right to make their own choices while our responsibility is about the safety and the well-being. And we talked about how our own experiences, beliefs, and biases can influence the way we respond. And for me, self-reflection is a really important step in most of the things I do. And you have to do that after the fact. Sometimes in the moment I've caught myself, but I think it's so important to look back at the things that we've decided. And sometimes it's that negative self-talk we hear, like, I should have done this, I could have done that. And when I hear myself say that, I'm always like, oh, this is me wanting to learn and to do better. And I reframe it so I can think about next time, these are some things I could do instead. And Juliet and Primrose, I was supposed to present with them last week and I wasn't able, or yeah, last session, I wasn't able to, but I watched it and I thought you guys both did a really good job in reminding us that our role is to coach and not control people. And we do support people to make informed decisions, even when those decisions have a bit of risk. And so we want to approach our conversations with curiosity instead of judgment and work in partnership. So Lisa also sent out the infographic that we're kind of basing a little bit of this session on. Gives us some guidance for responding in the moment, reflecting afterwards, and having conversations with our teams about it. I did want to just revisit harm reduction quickly, and I don't want to do it because I don't want to dilute the importance of it. You know, I'm not saying wearing a seatbelt is the same thing as helping someone with harm reduction with substances, but it's a good way for us to remove our judgment if we can remember all the risks that we even take in our own life. So that's going to be the piece I do, and then Mark's going to move on to help us talk about some of the FAIR principles in ethical decision making and work through a couple scenarios. So that's kind of our hope for today. We want to talk about how we navigate situations where there isn't one perfect answer, right? I think we all know that there's many answers to many ethical decisions, and we just want to try to find the most safest and the one that, you know, supports the person best. Our goal isn't to eliminate the uncertainty, it's to be thoughtful and ethical while supporting well-being. So for harm reduction, when we hear it, it has a bit of a stigma around it because it's often used for substance. But I feel it's broader than that. And I'm going to be honest, these are a lot of my opinions as well. So I already know, like, some self-reflection in that area is probably good after this, but it's broader. And I think, you know, we live in a world where risk is part of our normal lives. So none of us live risk-free. Every day we make choices, including like driving cars, riding bikes, playing sports, travel, and trying to do new things. And we don't eliminate those from our life because they have risk. We try to look for ways to make them safer. And I think that's what we need to look at when we talk about harm reduction. How can we make it safer instead of controlling it, right? So we wear seatbelts, helmets, right? We've all got helmets. We all clip the helmet on under us. Sunscreen, smoke detectors, that's all harm reduction as well. So when we think about it, let's think about it in a realistic way, like when we're talking through ethical frameworks too, of how can we neutralize it a bit. So we want to support people rather than control the behavior, right? That's the piece that we can't do. No one can control anybody. We want to keep Connect's values in mind when we do it and remember that we believe in doing with and not for. And we value personal choice, dignity, inclusion, and supported risk-taking. People are the experts of their own lives, and instead of asking them, how do we stop this person from taking risks? We can ask them, how do we help this person do what matters in a safer way? So for me, harm reduction is about partnership and respect, meeting people where they're at, building trust, making informed choices, and helping people reduce harm while continuing to live their meaningful, connected lives. The goal is not to eliminate it, it's just to help them thrive. So I hope that lands okay. We're open to feedback on that piece if anyone wants to talk about it briefly, and then Mark's going to take over from here. Thanks for listening to me spiel.
There we go. Okay, thanks, Dale. Yeah, really good introduction and connection to the last sessions. You mentioned a little bit there, and I kind of wanted to ask everybody here, just maybe by show of hands, real or emoji, who here has left work and thought, did I make the right call during that situation, or was, could I have done something better? Who here has left work and thought that? Okay, perfect. Yeah, I'm going to assume that everybody has done that, and that's good. And get used to it, because we all know that working in brain injury is complex. It can be messy, and so can the process of ethical decision making and the principles that we're going to get into here today. So yeah. So today's it's not like Dale said. It's not about making the right decision. It's about learning how to think through difficult situations. So some of what we're going to talk about here, I think what we're hoping is that people will sort of learn and start to use some common language, lean into our shared values, and then remember that, in these situations or after these situations, it's best to use your team, right? So like reflect, communicate during the moment, reflect afterwards, and think about kind of like what worked, what didn't, could we have done something better? So yeah, so I think Dale kind of mentioned this. It's really, to sum it all up, it's about doing the best that you can in the moment. It's about keeping people safe, but also respecting their choice and preserving their dignity. So yeah, so the FAIR principles here. So again, in ethical decision making, I think it's not right or wrong, and often some of the principles that we're going to get into, it's really kind of about balancing sometimes competing values. So with the FAIR principles, so that's FARE, these are often the ones, and that's freedom, autonomy, respect, and empathy. So the reason that we want you guys to consider these is because they're often the ones that are kind of overlooked. They're the ones that are hardest maybe to consider in the moment, when you're stressed and when you're kind of worried about maybe somebody's safety. But all of these principles have sort of kind of like a counterweight. This, I don't think I've sort of added these, but we want you to focus on these, but remember that there is a counterweight, and sometimes we need to consider those counterweights. So I'll get into now. So the F is for freedom and flexibility. So basically, how can we expand this person's opportunity for independence? So when you're maybe in a difficult situation, and you want to consider freedom, you can ask yourself, am I helping the person do what matters most with the people they choose and as independently as possible? Am I being flexible? Am I looking for ways to make this happen safely rather than just saying no and kind of trying to control the situation? Am I encouraging choice and meaningful participation? And am I helping this person to build social connections and community belonging? So the counterweight to that, and I was going to ask you guys, but we're just going to go through these because I think we're going to run out of time. So the counterweight to freedom might be safety, right? So how can we limit risk and prevent harm? So kind of an example of that might be like if somebody wants to go for a bike ride, freedom, we'll just say, yeah, go for it. Like, sure, it's your life, it's your choice. Where the counterweight to that is like safety and maybe, if you were to only consider safety, you might just say, no, you're not going to do that. I'm not going to unlock the bike for you. So the way that we should be sort of considering these things is balancing freedom and safety. And so we should be asking, how can we make this happen, but in the safest possible way? So the A is for autonomy. So ensuring that a person's leading the decision and the process. So some questions to ask yourself would be, is this person leading this decision? Are we respecting this person's decision? Are we seeing them as naturally creative, resourceful, wise, and whole? Are the person's goals, preferences, and values guiding me? Am I making the decision with them and not for them? Am I separating my own beliefs from their choice? Because that's, I think, something that we can all be guilty of doing sometimes. And then when needed, am I helping them to advocate for themselves? So again, the counterweight to this might be, well, I'm an expert, I know better. Maybe they've made a bad decision in the past, or this will be quicker, so I'll just do it. So an example might be So somebody wants to cook dinner, efficiency would say, well, I'll just do it. It'll be quicker and they'll make a mess. Where autonomy says, sure, let's do it together and I can help, but only if you need it. So the R is for respect. So acting with dignity, professionalism, and thoughtful judgment. So questions to ask yourself would be, am I preserving this person's dignity? Am I speaking to them the way that I would like to be spoken to, or the way that I would want my loved ones to be spoken to? Am I protecting privacy and sharing information only with permission or as needed? Am I considering how this decision is affecting the person, but also others? And am I maintaining professional boundaries while working collaboratively? Counterweight might be, so convenience again, and assumptions. So talking about someone without them, or not taking their wishes, needs, or beliefs into consideration while making a decision, or maybe even creating goals that aren't their goal, but you're just assuming might be. So an example would be discussing someone in the hallway because it's convenient rather than speaking to them in private or including them in the conversation, or at the very least, speaking as if they're there with you. So respect is basically nothing about me without me. And again, how you communicate to them. And then the last one is empathy. So what is this person experiencing? Why might they be asking to do this or needing this? I think empathy helps with respect, because if you can understand what's driving the person, you can kind of put your own judgments aside. So some questions again to ask: have I listened to this person to understand rather than judging? Have I checked my understanding of their feelings and perspectives? Am I responding in a way that reflects their strengths and goals? And am I supporting growth? So this, another maybe counterweight to that is sort of this sort of idea of being an expert or rescuing or judging people. Like, those aren't necessarily good counterweights to consider, but sometimes you might, have some information that they're not considering. So, so that's kind of the expertise piece, is that feeling of like, I know better, so I'll just make this decision. Or where judgment might just be like, well, this person's lazy. So an example that I often hear, is that, so maybe there's a person who's always asking for help with something, and they can do it, and perhaps they can do it, but maybe they are asking for a reason. So maybe they're lonely, or they're bored, maybe they've had a hard day, and the most attention or interaction that they're getting is when you're helping them. And so they're asking for that help. And so rather than thinking, well, you're lazy, I know you can do this, and getting upset because you have to help them, try to use empathy, right? Kind of try to consider why they might be asking for that help when they might not need it. And then conversely, rescue might just be like, well, I want to help you, so I'm going to do everything for you. And so that's doing for, it's not doing with. We want to be able to encourage independence as much as possible. So these are the FAIR principles. I think if we can leave today where everybody kind of has an understanding of these, then it will give us some common language to use. We can be more consistent in the way that we sort of think through problems. We can be more consistent with each other, between each other, and also with the people we support. So I think these are going to be really, really helpful, and I really hope that you guys kind of dig into these a little bit after this. But right now, we kind of wanted to give a scenario that we can all go through, and I hope we have time to do this. But so I'm going to kind of give you some scenarios. This is all hypothetical, and hoping that you guys can provide some suggestions for how you might respond to these situations. And if there are, there probably will be differing perspectives, and that's good. And then we can just kind of work through them together. So maybe, I don't know if maybe I'll put these in the chat, but okay, so here's the scenario. So it's the weekend, it's maybe an evening shift. You're working in a new house. You don't know all of the people that are living in the house. One of the guys comes up to you and tells you that he's going to take the bus downtown for some food, and he's not sure when he'll be back. He says he'll be back before bedtime. You might ask, has he ever taken the bus? And he says, no, but I'll figure it out. So what might you do in this situation? And which of the FAIR principles might you lean into?
There are a couple hands up, but I feel like that might be left over from your first
Yeah, there's lots of hands.
quest. take them down or we'll call on you.
I'll just put the I'm gonna put it in the chat too. Maybe just speak up because I don't know who's.
Why is no one speaking?
Christine, Amanda.
For me personally, I would suggest to look into which route, which bus to take. You know, go over it with him, and ways of communicating with us in case something happened.
Okay. So you're obviously not jumping to no, you can't go, which is great. You're trying to get some understanding of the bus routes yourself, supporting them to maybe look into that. That's good. And so which of those FAIR principles do you think that is considering?
I think he's considering freedom and autonomy.
Okay. So ask if someone else would like to join. It's good problem solving.
Yeah, I think the empathy, oh, sorry. I was gonna say, I think the empathy has a good question, like, how can I help this person move forward? Right? So like, again, not controlling behavior, but how can we make this work for this fella?
And I think, Mark, you were kind of talking about the countering, like balancing things, and I think offering, you know, some possibilities, like having someone go or looking through a route or something like that is trying to balance. Like you want to give freedom, you want to be flexible. How can we think about how we can support this person in ways that maybe they can receive? They may not be able to receive those ways that we think are safest, but or the steps, you know, typically that maybe an occupational therapist might want you to take, but let's just try and wrap around supports in the way that that person can receive them.
Yeah, so you're balancing that freedom and autonomy with safety and some of your maybe expertise or information, right? So that's good. Okay. Scenario number 2. So let's assume that some of the other sort of things that I had sort of thought of, maybe you could offer a ride downtown, you could support them to learn the bus route, ensure that they're getting on the bus, all these things. But let's just assume that he's made the decision to go downtown, and then as he's getting ready to go, he tells you that he's really excited because he's going to go to one of his buddies' house who he used to party with, and that he hasn't seen any of his friends since his injury. He's been maybe depressed lately. He hasn't had any visitors. You read up on his profile, or maybe you've, following the first conversation, talked to somebody who does know him, and you discover that he's been sober since his injury, but he used to struggle with alcohol and meth, and that his brain injury occurred while he was intoxicated. So how might this now change your decision, or does it change your sort of what you've already sort of started to plan with this person? And then which of the FAIR principles do you think you sort of need to consider? Maybe start with, does it change?
First, for me, I would really check in with myself if my decision will be clouded with judgment, and then I'll go from that, and advise him for his safety. I mean, you know, it's yeah, I'll go from there.
Does it feel less comfortable now supporting a decision for somebody to go downtown? You know that there's a potential that he may use substances or You know, and something that he struggled with in the past and maybe have contributed to his brain injury.
Definitely.
Yeah. Do you think though that we should still be considering that this is important? So reviewing kind of again the history, he's been depressed lately, he's been isolated, he has friends that he wants to go see. So we're sort of using that empathy piece, right, to sort of understand his perspective and why he may want to go do this.
Yeah, for me, this brings a great opportunity to just have more discussion around his recovery as well. So it would be a great opportunity to say, like, how do you feel being around people who are maybe using alcohol that you don't use? And would you know how to leave when you needed to leave? Like, I don't think we have to say that, we don't have to assume he's gonna be around something and use that substance. I think we can ask those questions. He knows he's in recovery. So to say, how are you doing with that? Do you have someone you could call? How will you get out real quick if you have to? I think that those are really valid questions that I would ask even a friend of mine, right? Just what's the plan if this doesn't seem like, and you haven't seen them since your injury. So what happens if something isn't feeling comfortable? I think it's a great opportunity. And under the freedom and flexibility, it says, like, does this help the person do what matters to them? So you can ask them, like, how much is recovery mattering in this moment for you, that's an environment you feel you can be in and still stay true to who you want to be, right? I think it's a great opportunity for that conversation.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you. Anybody else before we put the sort of last scenario up here?
Well, for me,
Yes.
Mark, it definitely changes my thinking.
Yeah.
The approach, though, is, I would get a little bit scared inside and go, cripes, what happens? But I love Dale's comment. I think a lot of people are very afraid to have conversations around addiction and recovery and, sort of skirt around the issue. But what we're here for is to help support people to live life that they want to live. And if they're in recovery and want to stay in recovery, then we help to support that in whatever way we can. But I don't think, my reaction to your question was like, of course it does. As I get to know this guy a little bit more, of course it changes, but it doesn't necessarily make me want to control the situation or stop him from doing something that's going to bring him joy. So
I wonder if I might add some, like an example of, we've had a gentleman who's been in recovery for a long time, used to live with us. Then he started using kind of harder and harder substances and began to get really aggressive and threatening. And we had to get a security guard, and he had to leave eventually. Like we couldn't find any other way to safely support him and other people living together. And years later, he went through a lot of like resuscitations, naloxone when he was when he wasn't living with us. He eventually got to a much better place. He was fully in recovery, and then he came back to live with us years later. And sometimes when he's struggled a bit, I know that he's kind of in danger of using again, like putting himself in danger in a way. I have brought up stuff like, remember what it was like last time? Remember how important your recovery is to you? You tell people, you've died like 5 times, and thank heavens you were brought back, and you feel like you have a purpose. I just want you to remember last time when things got really bad, like once you started using that harder stuff. I don't want to see that happen to you again. And I don't want us to be in a position where we can't support you again. So just try to remember that this is important to you. So there is some, like I was doing some convincing and some reminding too, because, you can get caught up in your desire to do something. And so just trying to bring him back. And kind of neat thing was that one time someone who was on our property dropped a powdery substance in a bag, and he found it, and he brought it back and told staff, "Oh, yeah, found this." Yeah. So like that's pretty cool. Like, so I think we need to also trust people, and sometimes they fall down, but other times we might be like pretty amazed that how they, yeah, they've got some strength in them.
For sure. Yeah, thanks, Julia. Yeah, I think that trust piece is key, and that was one of the questions I asked at the end of the last or one of the last sessions was, so say if you didn't support the decision, what's the likely outcome, right? So if we didn't support this person to either get on the bus, maybe learn the bus routes, go downtown, have a plan. I'm seeing lots of like sort of safety stuff and what you could discuss with this person before they go. That's all really good thinking. So now say we didn't do any of that and you said, no, I'm not going to do this. What, like if you play that out, what might happen to a person who's isolated, depressed, has struggled with substances in the past? You know, I think we kind of need to consider that side of things as well, right? So, you know, viewing people as naturally wise, creative, resourceful, and whole, respecting their wishes, understanding and empathizing with what it is that they need and are trying to do, and then supporting them to do whatever that may be. In this case, go see a friend in the safest way possible. I think that's kind of what we want people to start thinking about. And you might not feel good about that decision as you leave work, knowing that this guy might have gotten himself in trouble. You know, or conversely, maybe if you just said, no, I'm not supporting this. And then you leave and you find out later that he went anyways. You might not feel great about that either, right? So I think, again, the takeaway, because we've only got a few seconds left here, is that we want people to be considering these principles, which are often overlooked in the moment when you're nervous. Use your team, do the best that you can, make sure that you're considering the person's choice and dignity, while also trying to ensure that they're, safe or doing things as safe as possible. So, yeah, so maybe I'll open it up if there's anything else that anyone wants to kind of add or ask, and then I'll let Jamie do his usual wrap up.
Yeah, we're right at 11 o'clock, and I know there's a bunch of people who might have to pop out to a meeting right away. But yeah, thank you, Dale, Mark, great job. That was really good information. And I think one thing to consider, because we have used this ethical decision-making several times in not more serious situations or more detailed, but ones that maybe take a bit more conversation or a bit more thought. So like Mark said, in the moment, you do your best. But if you think it requires a larger conversation, we have resources throughout all of our locations that can meet on Teams and talk through these situations with you. I know Primrose, Mark, Juliet, Dale have all used the ethical decision-making framework in their locations. Adam's pitched in and helped out. So there's lots of people around. And obviously Karen is like the guru of decision-making. She's been very quiet today, Karen. But yeah, we have lots of resources that we can help you with this stuff. So if you think it needs a bigger conversation, don't hesitate to reach out and we can set up a time to chat and walk through it with you.
Perfect reminder. Thank you.
I thought Prim was supposed to talk today too. What happened? What happened
He did
there?
so much legwork for us in the prep.
Okay.
She's
All right. Okay.
fully supported by Prim. Yeah.
Yeah, fully. Nice.
I know the
this was
three of them spoke Monday, so I figured they're all good.
Yeah. This has been a really important conversation, and I want it to continue. I know that all of you get yourselves into situations where you feel unsure, perhaps lack the confidence or the competence around it. And I think what we're trying to do is offer opportunities so that you can build your competence and your confidence, because this is the work. This is what we do. These are the folks that we're supporting with pretty complicated human issues. And we get to do that. And day to day, you're there with them. So that's one of the things that we're really trying to do, is find ways and opportunities to offer to all of our life redesign coaches and resource coaches more conversation, more learning, so that you can build your competence and your confidence to be in those situations. with people. So thank you for bringing this forward. Dale and Mark and sort of Prim.
Prim too.
Prim too. Prim too. Yeah.
This,
Okay,
Alright.
Patty, I'll just say hi. Hi, everyone. I'm Prim. I was
We're out of
supposed
time,
to
Prim.
speak. So this is me speaking now. Hi.
Yeah.
you know what? I never introduced myself. You guys were all giving Prim the gears for not introducing yourself last time, and I never did this time.
Oh.
So I'm Mark. I'm the site leader at Lake Country. Thanks, everyone.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
Yeah,
See you next
really
month.
good. Thank you.
Thanks. Bye.